Well, here with us now is Jonathan Ruhe, Fellow for American Strategy at the Jewish Institute for National Security of America. Good morning. Nice to have you today.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So how do these back and forth attacks between the United States and Iran threaten the negotiations to end this war?
So, to be honest, I don't think they threaten to end the negotiations. I think both sides have decided, both the United States and Iran have decided it's worthwhile to see what they can get out of negotiations. And so I see these back and forth ultimately as stemming from Iran's efforts by still threatening shipping in the Strait of Hormuz to test U.S. resolve in those negotiations and try to maximize their leverage being the Iranian regimes. And this is a standard Iranian page out of their playbook when it comes to negotiating with the United States.
Look, so sitting here in New York, in the U.S., a lot of our viewers are waking up, and when they hear all of this military action has been happening now for days now, this punch us and we'll punch you back kind of thing. Is this just the nature of the language of the region? Is that what you're trying to say? I mean, because it doesn't look good from here.
No, certainly. And, we've heard comments from Trump administration officials talking about how they deal with the Iranians. I believe the vice president said violence will be met with violence. That's certainly a different vocabulary than we're used to hearing U.S. officials use in talking about other issues at home or around the world. But I think partly is in order to get to this point in the quote unquote ceasefire where you can have negotiations, both the United States and Iran left a lot of those issues that will be negotiated over, left those unresolved. And so right now you're seeing that we have a lot of gray area between peace, so to speak, or at least a negotiation, and the continuation of the war that we've been seeing since February. And the Iranians are very hard-nosed, they're very cold-blooded, and they're more than willing to attack our partners around the region to try to get a better read of our negotiating posture.
And with President Trump here recently saying that we may use military force to complete the job here, what is that saying to Iran? Do they believe this? We had a lieutenant general on earlier. She said that it sounds like hyperbolic language. Is this just a negotiating tactic, or are we going to see the United States ramp up military action?
So I'm certainly skeptical that we'll see a return to full-blown war, at least absent one of these tit-for-tats that we described at the outset. Those could spiral out of control. Iran, hits something that kills a lot of Americans. Trump has made clear that's a red line. But absent a sort of escalation scenario like that, I think the Iranians have taken the read that the United States took its best shot at Iran. And Trump will claim some operational successes, which are deserved, but ultimately we still have the same strategic equation, which is Iran does not want to give up its nuclear weapons program. It does not think it's been defeated. It still wants to contest the United States. And so, I think for now, both sides are willing to do these tit-for-tats, these low-level strikes, to see what they can, if that helps their negotiating posture. But beyond that, I cannot foresee a return to the war like we had in March.
Yeah, well, when you see them firing on their neighbors in Kuwait and Bahrain there, and then you've got Iraq's foreign minister telling his Iranian counterpart today that it's important to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and lift the naval blockade, what does that tell you coming from a strategic ally of Iran's?
So, I think it really shows ultimately that one way Iran thinks it won this war is it now believes it controls the Strait of Hormuz. It believes that the MOU that it signed with the United States about where these negotiations are going to go, it believes that that MOU enshrines Iran's claims of controlling the strait. And right now that puts the rest of the region, including our partners, in a real bind because they have to decide whether they want to insist that freedom of navigation continue like it was before the war, and that requires them to work with the United States. Or would they rather just sort of pay the blood money, or whatever you want to call it, give in to Iran's extortion and play into this Iranian game where Iran claims it controls the strait, which is not only a financial issue, having to pay the tolls that Iran demands, but also realizing that if Iran thinks it controls the strait, then Iran also feels it can reclose it at a time in the future of its choosing. And we've already seen the economic fallout from when that happens.
Right. And would there be a domino effect of other nations trying to do similar things, which would disrupt the whole shipping industry as well? So the longer that this all plays out, this tit for tat, who does it benefit more, the United States or Iran?
I would have to say Iran, and that's ultimately because uh, playing for time with these negotiations, the United States is not going to get anything out of the Iranians that President Trump has stated as his objectives. He's not going to get an agreement where Iran meaningfully gives up its nuclear weapons program. He's not going to get an agreement where Iran agrees to cede its proclaimed authority over the strait, like we've been discussing. And Iran's not going to give up its missile and drone programs, which Trump stated was an objective at the outset. This is not a critique per se of President Trump, because Iran was never going to give these up to anyone it negotiated with. So the danger in continuing these talks is that the United States agrees to a deal which gives Iran billions of dollars in sanctions relief and basically enshrines Iran's belief that it's now the dominant power in the Middle East. So the longer we go through these talks and the longer we have these tit for tats, I think the more it plays into Iran's hands and sense of victory.
Okay, so in your eyes, what has to happen for there to be acceptable terms, for there to be a win for the United States?
So this is definitely a very difficult question, especially because the United States took its best shot at Iran in the war. We had some incredible operational successes, took out a lot of Iranian capabilities, but at the end of the day, Iran also showed it doesn't need that much in terms of missiles or shipping threats to really put the screws on the region and claim a strategic victory. Ultimately, and you talk to a lot of Americans who were in the government who had plans about this. Ultimately, if the United States cannot show that we can restore freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz, which has always been an explicit U.S. national security interest, if we're not willing to run those risks, and I don't think the Trump administration is, then ultimately, we have this untenable situation. The difficult part now is, as we discussed earlier, that would mean the United States restarting some significant military operations in one form or another, like we saw President Trump threaten in that social media post.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think the Trump administration has decided it's just not worth it at this point. The costs are too great, and they still think they can get a good deal out of the Iranians.
Yeah, well, blood and treasure from the United States, and then from a political standpoint, you have political analysts saying that it would not be good for the president either, with his approval ratings going down over his handling of the war with Iran. Thank you so much for joining us, Jonathan Ruhe.